Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, Ibu Bapak semua, all participants to our event today, the Cleveringa Lecture. I would especially welcome to the Dutch Ambassador designate to Indonesia, Timor-Leste and ASEAN, Your Excellency Bapak Mark Gerritsen, and then Ibu Yvonne Klerks, the Education and Science Attaché of the Kingdom of the Netherlands to Indonesia, Professor Sulistiawati Irianto of Universitas Indonesia, the recipient of the Bosca Medal, and our speakers for today's Cleveringa Lecture, Prof. Adriaan Bedner, Head of the Vollenhoven Institute of Leiden Law School, and Dr. Herlambang Wiratraman, Faculty of Law, Universitas Gadjah Mada. I'm Dia Wirastri of Universitas Indonesia, your master ceremony and moderator for today. And now I would like to welcome Bapak Marit Bellen as the head of Leiden University in Indonesia to give his welcoming remarks. Bapak Marit Bellen is since 2015 the director of the Office of Leiden University in Indonesia, as well as director of the Royal Netherlands Institute of Southeast Asian and Caribbean Studies Office in Jakarta, and policy advisor for Indonesia at Strategy and Academic Affairs Office of Leiden University. Silakan Bapak.
Welcome to this year's edition of the Cleveringa Lecture. The Cleveringa Lecture is given every year around the 26th of November to commemorate Professor Rudolf Cleveringa, who on the 26th of November in 1940 read aloud his now famous speech. At that time, as Dean of the Law Faculty, he denounced the measures taken by the Dutch occupying forces by removing university professors from their posts. And he objected to that during his speech, and afterwards he was arrested by the security services and remained in prison until summer of 1941. Having listened to his speech, the students went on a strike, and then the German forces subsequently closed the university until the end of the war. Until now, importance to Cleveringa is given by Leiden University, not only because of Leiden's motto, Bastion of Freedom, but also as an expression that academic freedom is the universal right for academics all over the world, regardless of background, religion, and ethnicity. The annual Cleveringa Lectures are organized by the Leiden University Fund, or in short, LUF, and this fund is supported by alumni for the advancement of Leiden University. The main activity of Leiden University is raising money to reward research grants to students and young scientists. The Cleveringa Lectures are organized not only in the Netherlands, but also around the world. And last year, we had 15 lectures in the Netherlands and 21 lectures abroad. So I'm very pleased that this year's edition bears a topic that reflects on the reason why the Cleveringa Lectures were established and why endorsing and supporting academic freedom and integrity is still important in the present day. This evening we have two distinguished guests, speakers, who will from different perspectives convince you about the importance to keep fighting for academic freedom and university autonomy. However, before we go to listen to the presentations, we will also this evening honor a member of the Indonesian academic community who has stood up to defend those ideals. I would like to thank all guests for being here today. I would like to thank the staff of Erasmushuis for supporting this event and making this beautiful venue available. Also big thanks to the Dutch Embassy, in particular to the Education and Science Attaché, Yvonne Klerks and her team. I'm very honored that Mr. Mark Gerritsen, Ambassador Designate of the Kingdom of the Netherlands to Indonesia, has made himself available to give some welcoming remarks. And also thanks to my colleagues of the Office of Leiden University Indonesia and KTV Jakarta for preparing this event, and to our colleagues of the Leiden Delft Erasmus Office in the Netherlands. Last but not least, Mrs. Theresia Diaghirastri of the Faculty of Law of Universitas Indonesia for sacrificing or volunteering herself today for moderating this event. Thank you very much. Terima kasih banyak.
like to invite the Ambassador Designate of the Kingdom of the Netherlands to Indonesia, Timor-Leste, and ASEAN, Bapak Mark Gerritsen, to present his welcoming remarks.
Ladies and gentlemen, climate change is an existential threat to mankind. Honorable guests, making a statement like this as a scientist might not be without risk nowadays. Recent research revealed that up to 40% of scientists researching the climate have received threats. 40%. Please take some time to let this number sink in. It's my pleasure here to address you briefly at this yearly event organized by Leiden University. Although I'm not an alumnus myself, I feel closely connected to the university. My father was a professor there for many years. My mother spent countless hours in the university library. My sister is a university professor there, and my brother is the head of an institute that's funded by the university. So a lot of connections there. Tonight I will tell them I also will have a connection with Leiden now. I think I'm not here for that reason. I'm here because of the extreme importance of the topic of today. The topic chosen fits extremely well with the thoughts behind the Cleveringa Lecture, and that is no coincidence. Academic freedom is not a topic of today only. It is a topic, it's a universal topic that has been with us for decades, if not centuries. People in the past, like Cleveringa, who dare to speak out, deserve our respect and our support. They always deserve to be safe. However, worldwide, the safety of scientists and academics is more and more under pressure. Scientists doing research on climate change, but also on other topics. These kind of threats lead to scientists not daring to publish their research, applying self-censorship, or even throwing the towel altogether. Women scholars and scholars from certain minority groups are particularly at risk in this respect. And this has a great impact on the scientists themselves, but also on their families and their surroundings. It is also a threat to the public debate. And scientists do not dare anymore to speak out in the public debate, online and or offline, a pivotal voice gets lost in the debate. Society needs to be able to trust science, that it will deliver facts that contribute to solving major global challenges such as climate change and global health issues. And also, for example, for the economy. Academic research is an important pillar. The work of scientists and academics, therefore, is crucial, and they have to be able to freely conduct their research. The previous Dutch Minister for Education, Science and Culture, Minister Dijkgraaf, addressed this issue by putting it on the agenda of UNESCO. And he tabled a resolution on safeguarding scientists, and the resolution was adopted unanimously by member states in November 2023. And this has led to a program on the freedom and safety of scientists. The program aims to improve knowledge transfer, promote cooperation, and share examples of good practice. Collaboration is the word that is essential here, because only together we can ensure that future generations receive solid education and are able to prosper. Only together can we tackle global challenges, shaping a more sustainable and safer world for future generations. And there is a lot of collaboration between Indonesia and the Netherlands on all kinds of themes, such as agriculture, renewable energy, and water. And recently, the higher education and research collaboration between our two countries was celebrated during the Winter Week in the Netherlands, when scientists and academics and policymakers came together from both countries to discuss future endeavors together. We cherish these excellent collaborations between our countries and are committed to shaping a more sustainable and safer world for future generations together. The lecture today enables us to share our perspectives and discuss together the challenges and potential solutions on the important topics of academic freedom. I wish you an insightful event. Thank you very much.
Adriaan Bedner's research has a particular focus on access to justice, dispute resolution, and the judiciary. This has led to publications on a wide variety of subjects, ranging from administrative courts and environmental litigation to human rights promotion in marriage law regimes and Indonesian legal education. He has been project leader and or steering board member of several research projects in Indonesia, sponsored by the Royal Dutch Academy of Sciences, the Dutch Research Council, and the Dutch Department of Foreign Affairs. At present, he is engaged in a long-term project of cooperation with the Indonesian Agency for the Protection of Witnesses and Victims. He has supervised numerous, mainly Indonesian PhD students. Our second speaker is Dr. Herlambang Wiratraman. He is an associate professor at the Constitutional Law Department, as well as chair of Research Center for Law and Social Justice, Faculty of Law, Universitas Gadjah Mada. Herlambang earned his PhD at the Vollenhoven Institute of Leiden Law School with a dissertation titled Press Freedom, Law and Politics in Indonesia, a Socio-Legal Study in 2014. He is the founder and chair of the Indonesian Consortium for Human Rights Lectures, Sepaham Indonesia, from 2014 till 2017, Southeast Asian Human Rights Studies Network, and Secretary General of Indonesian Young Academy of Science, ALMI, from 2022 till 2023. He has been initiating the establishment of the Progressive Alliance for Academic Freedom in Indonesia, KIKA, which he is currently an advisory board member at this alliance. His latest research projects are related to free expression, the rise of authoritarianism, and academic freedom in Southeast Asian contexts. I'm happy that we have two esteemed speakers on board today and would like to invite Professor Adriaan Bedner to give the first presentation.
Hadirin yang saya hormati, dear all, let me first express how honored I am to be delivering a Cleveringa lecture here today, together with my friend and colleague Herlambang. The topic we will be addressing is closely related to what Professor Cleveringa was championing almost 84 years ago in the Academy building in Leiden. He stood up for academic freedom. At the time, such academic freedom was extremely limited in both Indonesia and the Netherlands. In Indonesia, because of the Dutch colonial system, in the Netherlands, because of the German occupation. Fortunately, the situation in both countries has improved since, but as we will argue, it is deteriorating, and there is ample reason for concern. But let me first explain to those who are not familiar with Professor Cleveringa's speech what it was about. At the time, in 1940, he was the Dean of the Law Faculty. In November of that same year, the German occupational authorities dismissed all Jewish university employees, and this included Eduard Meijers, Leiden's most renowned professor of private law and Cleveringa's promoter. After the announcement of the decree, the professors of the Leiden Law Faculty gathered in a meeting and decided that they should take a stand. Professor of International Law Telders, here on the slide as well, explained to his colleagues how this decree was not only morally unacceptable, but also in breach of international law. He proposed that he would deliver a speech of protest to denounce the decree. However, Cleveringa insisted that as the dean, he should take responsibility and speak up. As he did, well aware of the repercussions that would no doubt follow, and indeed he was arrested, and the university was closed down by the German occupational government. Less known is that two other Leiden professors in other faculties joined the protest in their own way. On the same day, Professor of Anatomy Barge gave a lecture in which he ridiculed the race theories of the Nazis. This is in the middle. And theologist von Holck started with another protest speech to his students, followed by a lecture on the Jewish philosopher Spinoza. These professors stood their ground, and they accepted the dangers this entailed. Herlambang and I obviously hope that we will never be faced with a similar situation, but there are serious reasons to be worried about present academic freedom, both in Indonesia and in the Netherlands. And we will now examine the current situation in both countries. So let me start with an overview of academic freedom in EU member states based on the Academic Freedom Index. So you can see the list. It runs from a maximum score of 1 to a minimum score of 0. We see it starts with Czech, doing really well. Then we see Belgium. And we see a couple of other countries, but we don't see the Netherlands yet. So we have to go a bit down, and then only Greece, Poland and Hungary are doing worse than the Netherlands, which was actually rather shocking for me and not what I had expected. Obviously, these lists do not offer a perfect representation of reality, but they are based on an expert assessment, and there usually is more than a grain of truth in them. So let us first take a look at the 5 indicators used. So there's freedom to research and teach, there's academic exchange and dissemination, there's institutional autonomy, campus integrity, and academic and cultural. So we see that when we compare it to the year before, it has gone down on all these various scores, except for institutional autonomy and academic and cultural expression. The real outlier is freedom to research and teach, which is the main cause of the bad score of the Netherlands. You can also see here, for those who really are critical and looking carefully, that it says 0.79, whereas in the previous slide it said 0.82. Well, these data are more recent, so it's going the wrong way. It has been going the wrong way since. The main part of my part of this lecture will consist of a discussion of the most problematic features in the Netherlands. But I'd like first to show you where Indonesia is according to the Academic Freedom Index as well. So, where have I remained? Yes. So if you look at this, you can see that the 0.69 Indonesia's overall score is lower than the Netherlands, but that it scores higher on freedom to research and teach than the Netherlands. So the lowest score is on freedom of academic and cultural expression, and indeed this is what Herlambang will be giving several examples of later on. It's also interesting to see the historical development of academic freedom in both countries according to the index. So for the Netherlands, we can clearly see German and for occupation, and for Indonesia, the Dutch occupation. When you look at the period before 1945. Well, including the Japanese occupation. And for Indonesian, the authoritarian old and new orders are clearly visible as well, followed by reformation and a gradual decline since in the Netherlands, in the Netherlands this is harder to see, but the decline of the past few years is evident. And I'll focus on these past 2 years. It starts with this building. Anybody recognize it? I see some people nodding at the front, well, the Dutch. This is actually, you can find it in The Hague, and it's one of the causes of the deterioration of Dutch freedom to research. I visited it once when we lodged a complaint against the rejection of a research proposal. This is the building where the Dutch Organization for Science, or NWO, is located. But why, may you wonder, is an organization supposed to be for science responsible for the deterioration of academic freedom? The answer is that in the past, universities could determine themselves how to spend research money. Presently, NWO allocates about 30% of the Dutch public research budget. Now, the point is that by supporting particular programs, it reduces the freedom of academics to select their research themes and topics. Well, this in itself does not have to be a problem. It has become one because the amount of money assigned through NWO has increased over the years, and the amount of money available has seen a relative decrease in comparison to other European countries. The other problem is that in line with the neoliberal policies of the past 30 years, NWO programs have increasingly forced universities to collaborate with business. Consequently, much research aims at results that can be quickly turned into marketable commodities. In other words, the room to focus on curiosity-driven fundamental research has decreased, even if we know that fundamental research ultimately has more potential to yield breakthroughs that drive economic growth. Have researchers let this happen just like that? For many years, opposition was limited to ineffective lobbying and a rare demonstration. However, in recent years, resistance to the neoliberal research policies has increased and become better organized. One example is the movement Scientific Education in Action, WO in Actie. And on this picture, you can see university professors in gown wading into the pond next to Parliament to show the difficulty of keeping their heads above water. I don't know whether they were still wearing these gowns later on during PhD defenses, but I suppose so. However, it's not only the government that has reduced the freedom to research and education. More perverse has been the direct influence of large firms. Take this newspaper heading, for instance. It says the following: the Zuidas, this is the Dutch equivalent of Jalan Sudirman, has a large influence on a major part of a master in tax law. It then adds that the tax service also wields such influence, but the main thrust is that tax law, as it is being taught in the Netherlands, aims at producing graduates who can advise clients how to dodge taxes, not graduates who think critically about tax law. It doesn't help that many professors in tax law work only part-time in the university and spend most of their weekly hours in private firms, where they earn incomes at least 3 times as high as university professors do. In my own faculty, it caused considerable problems when new staff indicted this situation. They argue for turning the tax law department into a truly academic institution. That means an institution which teaches students to think about issues of social justice instead of mere technicalities. Such influence by private capital is also wielded in other forms. Here you can see a protest at Erasmus University against the influence of Shell Oil on research. Firms like Shell sponsor research that promotes their interests, both through direct funding and through establishing special professorial chairs. Resistance against such influence has increased sharply after the effects of fossil fuel on climate change have become apparent. Moreover, it has turned out that more than 30 years ago, Shell had commissioned a scientific report that clearly outlined the devastating effects of fossil fuel use on climate change. That they swept this report under the rug has reinforced academic protest against Shell's involvement in research funding. Later, it also appeared that Shell had on its payroll well-respected scholars as the chemistry Professor Bedner, who in the 1990s belittled or even denied the influence of carbon dioxide emissions on global warming. I still remember his pieces in the newspaper, actually, and that really made me doubt whether there was climate change. So it was really quite a shock for me to discover that he had been paid by Shell. So that big oil firms try to influence academic research and teaching is, of course, nothing new. And please allow me a brief look at the past. So the building on the left is the headquarters of the Bataafse Petroleummaatschappij, or BPM. The men on the right are the professors of the Utrecht Faculty of Indology. This faculty was directly financed by BPM. The reason was straightforward. Big firms found the Dutch colonial officers too concerned about the welfare of Indonesians and too soft on Indonesian nationalism. These officers were educated in Leiden by liberal professors like Van Vollenhoven and Snoeker. Dutch entrepreneurs wished for colonial officers who would cater to the needs of business, not the needs of Indonesian peasants. In what is known as the assault on Leiden, BPM managed to establish a faculty that competed with Leiden in educating colonial officers and producing legal ideas to serve its own interests. If ever there has been a bulwark of academic prejudice, it was this so-called oil faculty. And this is why I'm so happy that I'm a professor at Leiden and not at Utrecht. But let us return to the present and the freedom of academic and cultural expression. Here too, there has been a negative development as witnessed by debates and incidents. I will start with the debate. An issue of controversy is whether scholars can participate in political movements in their capacity as scholars. This issue first emerged in connection with scholars of climate change who feel that their professional knowledge compels them to take action. Scholars have taken part in demonstrations, become members of organizations as Extinction Rebellion and Scientist Rebellion, and research by Fabian Dablander indicates that 83% of scholars worldwide are concerned about climate change, and of these 83%, 91% thinks that political action is required and not forthcoming sufficiently. 23% has already engaged in action, and 10% have even engaged in civil disobedience. The question is whether they can do this in their capacity as scholars. Opponents argue that this is not allowed. They can only do so as ordinary citizens. The scientists concerned reject this view. They argue that there is such overwhelming unanimity about climate change, its devastating consequences, and its human causes, that they can represent science and the authority that comes with it in political action. Now, this is a debate, but there are other ways of making known one's disapproval of scholarly positions. Let us take a brief look at societal reactions to scholars in the media, and this was already mentioned by the ambassador at the start of the meeting. Yeah, sorry. You have to bear with me a little bit longer. I'm not done yet. Such reactions can be quite toxic. In particular, social media play a crucial role in directly threatening academic freedom of communication. Virologist Marion Koopmans, here on this slide, was a major spokesperson on behalf of scientists in the Dutch media during the COVID pandemic. And she received so many hate messages that at some point she had to consider whether she needed protection. I first considered translating one of these threats, but it's so horrific that I thought I wouldn't do that to you. Well, Marion Koopmans is an extremely courageous person. No doubt some scholars fear for such pressure to the extent that they withdraw from communicating their knowledge or even give up their work altogether. The next example is about demonstrations by academics on issues where there is more scholarly controversy. Here you see students and staff protesting in Leiden against the war in Gaza and the collaboration between Leiden University and Israeli institutions. You can't see me, but I am somewhere in this crowd as well. Now, here we are probably not demonstrating in our capacity as scholars, although I should add that my international law colleagues have convincingly argued that Israel is acting in severe breach of international humanitarian law. They claim that Israel's army is most likely engaged in actions that can be qualified as genocide, and this is actually what may very well be determined by the International Court. Yet, as a scholar and a citizen, I have difficulties in determining my behavior. I don't like crowds, and certainly not when they are shouting slogans. Yet, I understand that not shouting slogans is likely to make the demonstration less effective. So what happens is that I usually find myself somewhere in the back, which is why I can't be seen, that I try to maintain my critical scholarly attitude. So I will join in some slogans, free, free Palestine, but not in others, like from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, because I consider this as a very strongly anti-Jewish sentiment. However, my main concern in connection with academic freedom is another one. The university has responded in a way to student demonstrations concerning the war in Gaza that has exacerbated tensions on campus rather than diffused them. So actually, for those reading Dutch, there was actually an article about this in the NRC Handelsblad this morning. The concern may be genuine, Jewish students feeling unsafe, but the means used have been counterproductive. In many places in the university, cameras have been installed. Now, my colleague Maartje van der Woude happens to be an expert on safety issues, and she claims that scientific evidence is unanimous. Cameras do not increase security, certainly not on campus. It costs a lot of money, and it just doesn't work. At present, one can't enter the law faculty anymore without showing one's pass to special security personnel. And if you receive a visitor, you should fill out a digital form before. At some point, the 10-year-old son of a colleague of mine was not allowed to enter the building to see his mother. The main problem is that it is unclear who takes these decisions, we went to the faculty board and they didn't know, and that they are not clearly communicated. Now, the most serious incident happened almost a year ago when, after a demonstration at the faculty in The Hague, faculty of Leiden, security personnel followed Leiden students and staff after they had been ordered to leave. They even went after them into shops. Extremely intimidating. I can only say that I'm relieved this has not happened again, but campus integrity is no longer what it used to be. And this brings me to my final slide, and a somewhat different issue. It concerns the responsibility scholars have to uphold science's integrity. As you may know, this is part of the formula when you receive your PhD in the Netherlands. So I read it to Herlambang and some others in the audience. It says, having a PhD degree poses the obligation on you to be honest and careful, critical and transparent, independent and impartial. That seems not to be the case with the following tweet of a Leiden PhD alumnus. So the translation is there. You can just read it for yourself, either in Dutch or in English. And now what I can tell you is every claim in this tweet is false. And the person who put the tweet on certainly knows this. Dutch youth hasn't been throwing firecrackers at each other in police since at least the 1950s, as reported by criminologist Buikhuizen. The borders were never opened. They have been increasingly closed over the past century. And because white Dutch indigenous youth are still engaged as much in throwing firecrackers as they were in the 1950s, closing the borders will not bring any relief. And I'm indebted to journalist Sandra Schimmelpenning for coming across this tweet. The point I want to make is that most problems with academic freedom relate to outside factors. But the ability of academia to make sure that scholars behave with integrity remains of the utmost importance as well. I am aware that you may not be able to prevent some lunatic politicians to obtain a PhD, or some PhD graduates to become lunatic politicians. However, it is something we should be wary of in order to uphold academic freedom as we aspire to. And on this note, I would now like to give the floor to Herlambang to speak about Indonesia.
Good evening, everyone. And this is really honored to speak at the Cleveringa Lecture this evening. And I would like to start by making this. Actually, I started by putting the title Normalizing Abusiveness, Indonesia's Academic Freedom in the Age of Deceptions. I just want to share my research findings so far related to what happened with the universities in Indonesia and also research centers. Let me try use this one. It works. In 1978, it was introduced by Ministry of Education's NKK-BKK that was normalizing campus life and also coordinating body for students due to the dominant or military controls over the campuses in Indonesia, and that was really effective in silencing universities, and therefore it was really difficult situations during New Order situations when the students and also academics express their critics to the government. So that's why restricting all critics in the campuses. And then because of that, I just want to use normalizing campus life by contextualizing with recent Indonesia situations. I started with cases. The first one is that was a magazine. It's very good journalism activities carried by numbers of students in IAIN Islamic University in Ambon, and because of their investigations, actually they found 32 cases of sexual violence carried by lecturers and also students. and not only in one university but also several universities in Ambon. And what happened with those students? They got physical violence. Their office were destroyed, including computers destroyed by unknown people, and also they were sort of like hiding in safe house. Actually, I met them. I traveled to Ambon and I met them in the mountain in order to talk directly, and also started to how to make a strategy in order to defend their rights. And then not only physically attacks, but also they were criminalized due to due to defamations, and also they were targeted for other sanctions, including from indigenous community group due to certain sort of like fake informations addressing them. And because of that, we should really consider that case was really important due to, overcome their criticisms, actually legitimate expressions through student media, but then they got so many violence without any protection from the government, including from Ministry of Religion. Actually, not part of the Ministry of Education, but Ministry of Religions. We reported to Ombudsman. We use administrative court also in order to challenge the decision and so on and so on, but we failed at that time. But at least students try to challenge. That is the good thing, and it's a progressive one. It was in 2022. A year before, I just want to remind this case. This was also a very important case in the context of Indonesia's legal history, because Saiful Mahdi was the one who really criticized his university management in Syah Kuala Aceh, and then due to actually official recruitment for lecturer, and then because of his criticism through WhatsApp group, then Pak Saiful Mahdi was reported to the police. And then, although I was there also in the court session in order to provide expert testimony, although explaining this is part of academic freedom, this is part of freedom of expressions, legitimate expression, and so on and so on. But then the judges sentenced him for 3 months in jail until cassation process in Supreme Court. Then what happened? He was sent to the jail, and then 41 days stay in the jail until we push the Ministry of Coordinating Ministry of Law and Justice, Mahfud MD. We pushed him in order to release Saiful Mahdi, and this was the case of second non-political amnesty given by Jokowi, not because of Jokowi, because our pushing to the government. So, of course, without public pressures, that will be still in jail. And Pak Saiful Mahdi now is really active in supporting KICA, Indonesian Caucus for Academic Freedom. And then the third case, this is related to researchers, not only attacking Indonesia's research institutions and also researchers, but also for foreign researchers in Indonesia or doing research in Indonesia. That was correct when the ambassadors mentioned about the targeting cases related to climate change. Actually, many researchers, especially if you all remember Eric Meijert and friends from Netherlands, he was targeted for permit restrictions in order to do research after reporting his article in the newspapers, and also quite interestingly, the consequences of that article, actually he was prohibited. He and friends were prohibited to enter Indonesia. Not only for him, but also for others doing research on orangutan, doing research on deforestations, and so on and so on. Related to, actually, if Indonesian government committed to build trust in protecting natural resources, including promoting the way to solve with climate change. But then this case actually quite unique because what we have seen, the data can be easily provide bad consequences for the researchers. The fourth case, this is the latest one, in 2024. I don't know whether you are remember or not, because this just few months ago during elections. In order to promote Jokowi's successfulness in the government, and many president of universities, including those rectors, were pushed by the police to make appreciations video and then posting to the social media, showing that, oh, we are supporting Jokowi because successful policies in development and so on and so on. But then no criticism on this, no responsibility. Actually, this was really clear, the way to target university in order to serve the government, underpinning the regime in promoting something that it's really, no freedom in expressing critics. Because one university in Semarang, it was Universitas Katolik Sugiya Pranata, the rector of that university rejected and then hit coming to that university because of his criticisms. So that's why this case was really, showing to the public that how come the government easily want to silence and also trying to make propaganda through the rectors. Okay. The other case, it is related to targeting students, academics, and also researchers by using what we call as cyber attacks or cyber terror, using persecutions, doxing, and so on. At my university, for instance, in Universitas Gadjah Mada, it was in 2020, if I'm not mistaken, a group of students making a discussions on impeachment, then suddenly they got attacked, targeted for killing even, or organizers, and also resource persons, and so on and so on. And interestingly, that was no responsibility, no accountability in order to bring to justice, especially who actually did that. And because of that, then still impunity take place in our legal enforcement. And that was a clear message. The research carried by sort of like cooperation between Amsterdam University, Diponegoro University, and LP3IS, that's a research center based in Jakarta, did research together, and then they found that cyber attacks using cyber troops in this country in order to manipulate the fact, in order attacking criticism, and so on and so on. And then now, police actually proposed new bill, revised one. They want to to have authority in doing surveillance. That will be also the very fundamental that we need to be careful in considering that authority due to responsibility so far that was quite often be found unaccountable. So hence, from these cases that I would like to share for you, really informing since last 5 years, what we have seen, many forms of attacks to academia or universities. First, physical attacks, digital persecutions, disbandment of discussion or seminars, book banning, like this picture showing book banning. They just, sort of like sweeping activities, using their knowledge in order to target what they call as a communist or left books, I don't know whether that is left because now it's really available in the market, and also you can download it for free even. And then dismissal of lecturers and students, over bureaucratizations, lawsuits and criminalizations, like Professor Bambang Arjo from Institute Agricultural Bogor, and also Dr. Basuki Wasis. They were what is that? Sort of like they got lawsuits for 3 millions. 3 millions, and in court. But interestingly, that we from academia in Indonesia, we did hand in hand, sort of like protecting him or not being targeted for lawsuits and even for criminalizations, because they got also attacked by bringing them to the jail. And then research screening, there are several cases as well. For instance, like doing research on, as I mentioned, related to climate change, forestry, deforestations, and also orangutan, considered as sensitive in this country. And even about history related to early years of independence, there was a case that academics also were targeted for stop the research due to sort of like it might be deteriorating for the Indonesians' politics. And then dissolvement research team, restrictive for publishing articles, dissolvement research institute. This case was really clear when our positions, especially with the KICA, Indonesian Caucus for Academic Freedom, really defend the Eijkman Institute for Biomolecular. And it was a really sad story behind the dissolvement of Eijkman Institute. And then not only with that dissolvement of institute, but also targeting those who were fired, because more than 100 brilliant researchers were fired without any clear protection for them in order to get future generations for researchers in Eijkman. And then forced campaign to support politicians, like what happened in this year, and clearly that there is no legal protections for academic freedom in Indonesia. So if you search in the law, there is no specific legal framework for protecting academic freedom. Of course, this is not new, but it's more systematic. No limited university autonomy due to state minister political intervention to appoint rectors. Feudalism legacy still take place. No or limited legal framework. Institutionalizing to control research, publication, and institutions. 5. Suppressive policies to silence criticisms, especially state cooptation or hegemony in disciplining academics and researchers due to the influence of oligarch power relations. So not only oil faculty, but it's more politicized due to oligarch university. So it's also involved in this case. And then targeting criticism, research findings, and academic institution discussions, especially digital attacks, because this is more frequently happen in Indonesia. And the last one, this is also more systematic because academic misconduct, including fake professors, predatory journals, the involvement of transnational organized crimes on publications. Tempo already reported this involved to many levels of mafia in relation to fake professors or even producing fake journals. And I just want to show positive side now after the positive sides. That was 7 years ago. Academics, researchers from various research institutions and universities coming to Surabaya by their own expenses. For instance, like Rosni Dasari from Aceh took the bus from Aceh. It's a long way to go to Surabaya, and then they just want to discuss about academic freedom in 2017. So 7 years ago, and it was 19 people, academics, students, including that. They start by because no legal framework, then they start by making Surabaya principles on academic freedom. It was not clear actually in the very beginning, but we have to convince ourselves we need to have sort of like legal framework in order to defend ourselves. So that was I think this picture actually the only picture that I have because that was really it's really I took the picture by myself, so I was not there. Then what happened with Surabaya Principles of Academic Freedom in 2017? After adopting that principles into our commitment for defending academic freedom, a year later, in 2018, that Surabaya Principles on Academic Freedom was adopted by Southeast Asian Human Rights Studies Network, and then in 2021, it was also adopted by National Human Rights Commissions, especially under the standard norms and regulations on freedom of expression and freedom of opinion. That is actually, yeah, I will discuss later on this. 2 years ago, actually, I was really worried with these situations. I wrote an article in one newspaper, and the title was Ilmuwan dan Aman Manipulatif, or Scientist and Manipulative Garden. And then in that article, I mentioned that the work of scientists, universities, and research institutes is definitely not being shut down like in the past. Even so, it seemed unreasonable in light of the democratic claims of the current regime to kill academia, research, and higher education development. What is happening now actually is that the climate of academic freedom is being curbed. It must still look beautiful, germinate, grow, and develop, but with discipline and centralism that are in line with the interests of those in power. I hope the story in 1978, of course, it hopefully not happen again in this nowadays situations due to military back in the academic spheres. But of course, we are ready to express criticism by defending this as a fundamental values for our democratic society. Thank you.